goodbye. Yo, pain, I'm leaving Cheyenne.
100 years ago, a collection of folk music was published that retuned forever the American songbook. Cowboy Songs and Other Frontier Ballads by John A. Lomax introduced the country to the music of the American West and helped propel the cowboy to iconic status. As Hal Cannon of the Western Folklife Center reports, a close examination of early cowboy music reveals details about some of the very first cowboys that don't quite fit the usual stereotypes.
From his earliest memories, cowboys made an impression on John Lomax.
I couldn't have been more than 4 years old when I first heard a cowboy sing and yodel to his cattle. I was sleeping in my father's cabin in Texas.
This is the pioneer folklorist from a radio show made at the Library of Congress in the 1940s. Lomax saw firsthand the great trail drives after the Civil War.
As the cowboys drove the cattle along, they sang, called, and yodeled to them. They made up songs about trail life.
Hooping up cattle, I'm standing up cattle, I'm riding around the cattle, and a hoop died lum, yeah, I'm there, and a hoop died lum, there.
But just who were these cowboys that Lomax saw? Where did they come from? These questions intrigued Mike Searles, a professor of history at Augusta State University in Georgia.
There's a popular notion that when you're talking about the cowboy, you're exclusively talking about white cowboys, which is, of course, not true. Black men were involved in being cowboys very early in the history of this country.
Let me tell you about Santa Hill. They told me right on the foot of the hill, and a hoop died yay, yay, and a bum died yay.
No one is sure how many African Americans were cowboys on the trail drives, but estimates are as many as 1 in 4.
For example, in southeast Texas, where you did have a large number of blacks who were slaves and had been doing cow work, well, when freedom comes, it would be just a natural for them to begin to do that work. And it was an occupation that there was a demand for it. They gained a degree of respect and independence.
The trail drives were a unique moment in history that brought together a diverse lot of men, including freed slaves and Confederate War veterans. And while some cowboy crews were segregated, photographs of others show black and white men working side by side in what Searles calls range equality.
In that environment, you want to have pretty good relations because that person could elect to help you or not help you in a dangerous situation.
By the early 1900s, America was changing. People were moving to cities, and John Lomax believed he was in a race against time to preserve the voices of those early cowboys. Back then, it was radical to think that the creative contribution of common working people had any value whatsoever. Regardless, he started sending out queries to newspapers, wrote hundreds of letters, and lectured far and wide, asking people to contribute in his quest to collect cowboy songs.
In 1909, I went to the Cattlemen's Convention in Fort Worth, Texas. One night I found myself in the back room of the White Elephant Saloon. I carried with me a small Edison recording machine that used wax cylinders. Instead of a microphone, I used a big horn, which the cowboys usually refused to sing into.
You know, I mean, he had a lot of moxie. Come in, a bunch of cowboys says, "Here, I want to, sing." You know, I mean, couldn't you just imagine that? They're all sitting there drinking and talking. He plops that thing down on the table, and they'd all scatter,
Don Edwards is a respected traditional cowboy singer. He got his start in the legendary White Elephant in Fort Worth.
This is where I used to sit night after night after night on my little stool and my guitar,
playing many of the songs first popularized by John Lomax in his Cowboy Song collection.
I rode across the valley range I had not seen for years. The trail was all so sport and strange, it nearly fetched the tears.
The first edition of Lomax's book contained 112 songs and a foreword by President Theodore Roosevelt. In his notes, Lomax credits the spirit of the ancient Anglo-Saxon ballad for informing the cowboy song. But when Don Edwards hears some of these songs, it's not ballads he's hearing.
You take a song called I'm a poor lonesome cowboy, I'm a poor lonesome cowboy, I'm a poor lonesome cowboy, I'm a long, long ways from my home. Is that a blues form? It's the earliest blues form there is. It's 3 lines and a tagline.
Don Edwards traces this blues connection to a place where cultures mixed.
If you go down deep South Texas, where this music really was born, down in the coastal bend down there, you had white cowboys, black cowboys, and Mexican vaqueros, who were very musical people. And so the white guys learned a lot of that stuff, and hence that's why a lot of that stuff sounded like the blues.
Especially in the case of songs which are more elliptical, they don't tell a story as the European ballads tend to do. They don't tend to be as detailed in who, what, where, when.
Roger Rennick is a ballad scholar from Lomax's alma mater, the University of Texas, and has written extensively on the connection between Old World and New World ballads. He says that while many cowboy songs are derived from British folk songs, some take a different direction.
Indeed, some scholars have called this a distinct African-American genre of the blues ballad because it kind of synthesizes a more emotional blues approach. And we certainly see some influence like that on some of the cowboy songs.
Farewell, fair ladies, I'm a-leaving Cheyenne. Farewell, fair ladies, I'm a-leaving Cheyenne.
Lomax did credit some songs as coming from African-American cowboys, notably the famous Goodbye Old Paint, although he never recorded a black man playing it.
Goodbye, old paint, I'm leaving.
My name's Rooster Morris, and that version of Old Paint, my great-uncle learned that from an ex-slave, Charlie Willis.
And in the middle of the ocean may grow a green tree, but I'll never propose to the girl that loves me.
You know, when you first listen to the song, the lyrics, you think, well, it doesn't make any sense, and then before you know it, you're seeing this wonderful movie in your mind of visions and things, and you can feel it.
Old paint's a good pony, and she paces when she can.
My name is Franklin Willis, and I'm the great-grandson of Charlie Willis, who rode the Wyoming Trail during the 1870s. He had a knack for singing. He had a gift, if you will, because his voice was real soothing to the cattle, and this is why they wanted him to participate in these big cattle drives, you know, because he would sing to them and just kind of make them relax.
Franklin Willis heard these stories passed down by his family, but there are no recordings of his great-grandfather, or even his father, who was also a singing cowboy. That ancient recording of Jess Morris pays homage to the former slave and to the larger experience of those early cowboys working out in the heat and cold for $1 a day. Out of that hard reality was born the iconic cowboy. That's why for Professor Mike Searles, the face and music of the West need to be represented accurately.
Many people view the American West as the birthplace of this country. If they only see it as a birthplace of white America, it means basically all other people are, in a sense, interlopers. They're not part of the core of what makes an American. But if they understand that African Americans were cowboys, even Native Americans were cowboys, Mexicans were cowboys, then it really, in a sense, opens the door for us to think about America as a multi-ethnic, multi-racial place, not just in the last decade or not in the last century, but from the very beginning.
When I was a cowboy, I always sang.
For NPR News, I'm Hal Cannon.
I'm leaving Cheyenne. Goodbye. I'm leaving Cheyenne. Goodbye, old paint. I'm leaving.